Welcome today to the Psychedelic Mom podcast. I'm with Brooke, and I am as much going to be a student today as everybody else listening. I came across Brooke on Instagram, and I was drawn to her brain and breath connection that she was presenting. And Brooke, you were a trained singer, and you learned a style of breathing at 12 years old. You were trained as a classic opera, is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I
And
sing a lot of metal now.
and then you played Division I golf in college and felt that maybe golf would be too hard to play professionally due to the impact on your nervous system, which brought you to breath practices. So when I saw this, one of the things I was drawn to, just because of the work that I do with individuals with trauma and in medicine work, the importance of our nervous system and being able to regulate it and noticing how trauma hacks the nervous system and then almost having to come back in and rewire once again the nervous system. I'm a huge meditator. So I've been someone who's been, using meditation as a means of connection to my breath and big into kind of the non-dual space. So when I saw you, I thought, God, this is fascinating. And you're bringing in the science. It seems like you have a working theory, tapping into the fascia, the connection to the breath, some math, and even like the number of breaths in showing where you are in your brain waves. So I am so excited to be educated today about what you've learned through your life path and what you're now teaching every Monday night, it sounds like. So welcome here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I would love to give humanity the gift of seeing the pattern that I see. And it still kind of blows my mind because I feel like I teach very basic physiology,
Hmm.
but strictly because of how many billions of dollars we spend a year in anti-anxiety meds and stress relief techniques that I know in the core don't work. I feel like it's just very important to keep repeating myself over and over. And as I repeat myself, I get better and better at delivering it with humor. And my goal is
Wonderful.
to take this very scientific seemingly topic and distill it down so I can communicate effectively to a 10-year-old. So I keep becoming more
Right.
creative every week with my metaphors and analogies and exercises we do.
Well, it's interesting because I have this program called True Nature, and it's just for my own clients. And in it, I curate some meditations, and are from me, but I also look for other people that are curating or creating content that is really useful. And so recently, I was looking for some ways in which to help a client regulate, and I came across the video that you created of you putting your feet on the tree, and your
Yeah.
feet were on the tree and your head and back were laying down on stone. And so I just really was like, let me find out more about the way you see the world. So, first of all, let's start with opera and how you were trained.
I had an amazing teacher. I went to just like a standard public school right
Mm,
around the street, and I was
hmm.
blessed with one of those gifted teachers that people talk about till they die.
Mm.
Mr. Gonzalez, he has no idea how much he impacted my life, I bet. But we were a
Wow.
nationally competitive choir at 12, and he made us phenomenal. And I remember just, being a kid and I would, be heading to choir practice and my energy would just surge. I was like, yeah, I'm ready for what we're about to do. And there's 40 of us, girls mostly, 10 boys, singing our lungs out. And when we would do competitions, we would get to play in these, sing in these very old churches. And
Wow.
I'm actually still friends with the
You,
piano player that we had. But
That's fascinating. When I was a little girl, similarly, I was in this little choir. We had the best teacher. We traveled around the world to sing. He was phenomenal too. And then in college, I took opera. So it was another thing that drew me to you. I don't
oh,
don't really sing anymore, but
oh,
just
come
that
on. It's
training
one of
was,
those,
I know, I know.
it's the
I
most
keep
unique
saying
instrument
that
in
at
the
some
world is
point,
the voice.
right? Right? Maybe that's another thing that drew you to me. A couple friends are like, "Why aren't you singing? Why aren't you singing?" And I keep saying, like, oh, I should go back to singing, just for myself.
I have
Yeah.
a couple programs I can turn you on to. It's a 10-minute a day practice because the vocal folds
Mm.
are so, I mean, they're two parts that aren't connected really. And then,
Mhm.
to miss a pitch is a millimeter off compared to hitting a pitch. But if you
Wow.
have a good breath work practice, the voice just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's really like no end to the
Wow.
capacity that we can have.
Wow. So where do we start? Tell me what it is that you are so
Let's start
excited about teaching.
useful. Let's start
Yes.
useful, just in case I only have 10 minutes of somebody's attention span, they can get something from it.
Okay.
So I keep seeing this pattern. And as a beekeeper and a gardener and a musician and a golfer, I'm a pattern person because that's what gets you through pressure, right? Is like I'm not feeling like I want to do X, but if I approach the beehive at the wrong time of day, I'm going to get swarmed if I smell a certain way. So there's patterns that exist throughout life. And people don't realize when they're often anxious, okay, their breath pattern is often very high. So, our brainwave pattern has been studied for the last 50 years on something called an EEG, an electroencephalogram, and it reads the vibrational patterns of how our neurons communicate. We only have two cells in the brain, glial cells and neurons, and we have 86 billion neurons. And these neurons are always sending chemical and electrical signals to us, right? Like, and to each other. And this is what houses our neuron clusters. This is how we sort information. So everybody that you love, every smell, every food, every experience that you have lives in this little cell. And then that cell is attached 10,000 to 75,000 different ways. And as our brain is communicating to each other, right, often we can find ourselves in these modes where time seems to pass rather quickly and we're doing a lot of things, but we're not very present with them. And the average person lives in something called beta brainwaves. And this is when we're highly functional, but we can be washing the dishes and making our grocery shopping list. We can be brushing our teeth, but also letting the dogs out of the back door. So it's when we're doing something that the neurons are so cemented together through muscle memory that we can also be simultaneously elsewhere in our mind when we're driving our car, right, to our grocery store. Are we really there? Are we singing the song on the radio while we're going there?
Right.
So the beta brainwave patterns rest between 16 to 30 hertz. So that's how these EEG is measuring our neurons. So they're firing, 15 to 30. The resting breathing pattern is 15 to 25 breaths a minute. So when somebody is very highly anxious, right, their normal resting breath pattern is kind of around 20 to 25 breaths a minute. And their brainwave patterns are about 20 to 25, 22 to 30 hertz. So
they're
for
matching
those of us,
almost.
there's a correlation. And I wish it was that simple if it was rhythm of your breath equals frequency of your brainwaves, because that would be great. Because there is a frequency that neurology has studied enough. It's called gamma brainwave. And that's 30 to 100. And it's when our neurons are firing in such an imaginative way that we are capable of this extra dimension. And that's actually what psychedelics is really all around. So when people macrodose, and they see the fractals and the connections and the pattern of the universe, and they can feel with their whole sense organ, that's gamma brainwaves. Now, gamma
And
brainwaves is
even like
shown to
deep
heal.
meditation, right? You can get into the gamma as well.
Well, Tibetan monks live there. The ones that have 62,000 hours and they hook up on the same EEG, they all live in gamma. So all of my work, it's really about teaching people how to break the stress loop, the basics of physiology, but the direction of my work is all about getting people to gamma. Because right now in the Western world, they say we experience gamma for a half second to 1 second at a time. And as healing as that brainwave pattern is, we often flip right back into beta. And this to me this is the goal. So
Okay.
if we could just,
You mentioned psychedelics. So just for 1 second, just to jump off here, because we
yeah.
never talked about it. I don't know if you've ever even used psychedelics. Have you used psychedelics?
Yeah, I've done 16 like very professional trips with medicine men, like trained Apache medicine men, in very ceremonial settings. My introduction to psychedelics happened when I was 18, which is very much part of the Red Road path. And then 4 times a year, so each equinox and solstice, to take medicine in a very sacred ceremony where like there's no
Beautiful.
touching. You're around a fire, you're outside, somebody's playing Icaros. And so my relationship to psychedelics has been very native. I was adopted into a Native American church. I was given a native name. And even though I don't credit being part of that church anymore, I'm so grateful for that experience. So still 4 times a year, I do a nice macro dose, but I do it in a very responsible set. So I have my little protocol
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
follow, and I make
Beautiful.
sure that my body's clear, I'm prayed up for it, and I go and touch base with my soul to make sure that I'm on the right path, you know?
Did that inform your path?
Yeah. When I was 18, when I did my first ayahuasca ceremony, and it was that session was actually with an ayahuasquero in up in this like karate dojo. It was actually indoors in Orlando, and they had flown over, these two women that I just love and trust, flown over this gifted ayahuasquero, and he had a woman translating the Icaros. It was a really cool experience. I've never been the same, literally, from that night. I
Yeah.
died and was
Yeah.
reborn. And my life completely altered. And I mean, I was always a hippie before that. I was always the nature loving, garden growing person. But that showed me that there is a dimension to infinity. Like I felt like I connected with the infinite and the eternal energetic source that I am. Once you see that once, it's yours. You never forget that, you know? No one can take
Yeah.
that away.
Yeah. Yeah. That starts to guide the life.
So there's a doorway that I think gets opened when you do psychedelics. And I think some people end up abusing that modality to get through those doorways. But those doorways of perception, once you're introduced, are open all the time. And there is something called the theta gamma sync, and it's very understudied. So most people, when they meditate, the way that we're taught to meditate is to drop out of beta, slow the mind down, close our eyes, understimulate, no phone, no talking. And that's 8 to 15 hertz. So the neurons start to slow down a little bit, but we're still controlling our neurons. So we're still telling our neurons where we want them to concentrate. And that's cool. And we can visualize a lot. We can plan our day. So, like when you wake up out of deep sleep and you're like, okay, it's Wednesday. I have to do these things. Let me picture them going. That's alpha brainwaves. But if we just drop a touch lower than that, that's theta brainwaves. That's 4 to 7 hertz. Now, that's where we are as children. And that's where our neurons are no longer being told what to do, but they're off. I call it off-roading. So the neurons, instead of
Mhm.
following these roads that we already have built, they actually can kind of like have their own little dialect. And we're more of a witness to this giant fluid structure, like this program that we have in our mind. And if we really understood the power of this imagination that we have, we would realize that our greatest ideas come from theta. And I make this joke often. If we truly understood the neurology, every single board meeting would start with, this is our problem. Let's go take a 10-minute power nap. Because we
Yeah.
have to drop out of the concentrating on the problem. So like if we have a problem, right, and we hit it with our beta brainwaves, we are going to follow our neurons down preconceived paths. If we drop into alpha and try to picture, we're still
Yes.
attached to the outcome. So the neurons are still attached to what's worked before. If we can just relax a little bit more into this detachment. And it's funny because detachment is neurologically supported. It's when we let go of the result that our neurons have this new ability to crossfire. And I'm a big fan of looking at brilliant minds. Every like 6 months or so, I read a new biography. And like the first billionaire woman, which was the woman who created Veuve Clicquot, and Da Vinci and Tesla and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison and Einstein. They all had this really interesting protocol where they had a problem, right? And imagine being Thomas, like working in the laboratory next to Thomas Edison. And he's like, hey, Jimmy, what do you think I should do here? And just be like, shut up, dude. You are on your 5,000th try. I don't care anymore about your ridiculous idea. I'm not even going to help you.
Right.
So these people were often looked at as wild, you know? They all kind of mention this funny thing. Curiosity, common thread, for sure. Curious, asking a million questions about something that was quickly skimmed over by other people. Then when they had a problem, there's this like quote that like will not leave my mind. And it's, I brought the problem to my mind. And it's like that phrase alone, like we have Google. When we have a problem, we just go to Google and we assume this other thing is going to, they looked at their mind as a storage unit of infinite creative potentiality. So they would bring the problem to their mind. And then a lot of them had a napping chair. And in the napping chair, Einstein famously would have a tennis ball and he would relax and let go of the problem. Okay. And basically fall asleep. Like, so just between that letting go of the problem. So alpha is when you let go of it. Okay. So you detach and then you're almost falling asleep. And in that spot, he would drop the tennis ball and then kind of be like startled awake. And it's in that theta mode that we can jump to gamma. It's called the theta gamma sync. Super understudied.
Did he do
There's
that
a
deliberately?
complete bridge. Yes. Yeah, this was their
He knew
access
this.
point to new creative thought. Tesla
Interesting.
would rock back on his chair and like almost lose his balance. So they all had their technique. Like Salvador Dali, he had a sign above his bed that said Salvador is working. So a
I
lot of
love it.
creative minds, have
Yeah.
used this law.
And is it
Yeah,
like a cat nap?
it's napping. And
Is it a quick nap?
so
How long are these naps?
I wish I could tell you exactly. It's really, so when we sleep, right? When we sleep, we're in something called delta. Delta is zero point 0.3 to 3 hertz. And when we just wake up, that dream recall mode, before you have to go to the bathroom, before you know what day it is, right? That dream recall space, that's theta. And if we could just slow that pocket of time down every day and tell our conscious brain, like when we get out of bed to dream journal, the beauty of dream journaling is you start to tell your frontal lobe, this is important. This space of mind, these ideas are important. And it starts to capture more and more and more. But when we start looking at our brains as infinite creative thought potentials, we actually start to build our ability to maintain this thought frequency. Now, my little hacking mechanism for years with the breath has been to slow your breath rate to 4 to 7. So if you're breathing instead of 15 to 25 times a minute, right? Breaths a minute. If I can get you to breathe 4 to 7 breaths a minute, you're going to be way closer to popping into theta. And I know I did my job. If somebody dozes in class, I'm like, they did it. They did it. And the way that I do that is by strength training the muscles around the lung. So the average untrained lung field holds only 5 to 7 cubic liters. And what's been shown over and over and over, like the world record holder can hold his breath for almost 25 minutes, Budimir Subat. And his lung capacity is basically 22 cubic liters. And that's because of the way our lungs are shaped. They're highly asymmetrical. They're not these like two cute little fluffy balloons. They are these really like awkward shape. 25% of us have like very asymmetrical bronchi, and they kind of open up infinitely. The surface area that they can be exposed to is amazing. So the larger we can make our chest, and the more we can drop the diaphragm down, the larger these muscles get. So what I tell my clients is if you train with me and you do my practice 5 days a week, in 6 weeks, I double your lung capacity and your breath rate drops in half. It's just math. And like, it's great because it makes people sing more powerfully. But my goal is for them to regulate their nervous system, because when we're highly anxious, our breath pattern is high. If we can acknowledge our breath pattern is high, right? And we'll never stop the stress pattern. The stress pattern is our nervous system operates at 275 miles an hour and is triggered through danger. So we can have a 10-hour massage If we get in our car and get cut off on the highway and you do that mouth breath into the upper chest, at 275 miles an hour, there is a chain reaction. You're not stopping. It's biologically built into us. It's going to happen in less than 2 seconds.
So
To
wild.
acknowledge that, right? Yeah, we'll never beat it. And that's okay. What we need to understand is it only takes 4 minutes to pull the body back into parasympathetic. And to do that, I call it the stress system and the pleasure system, because if you can't access the pleasure system, you don't have pleasure. And
Yeah.
when our stress system is activated, the digestion's off, the immune system is completely off, the liver dumps sugar into the blood. So all of these autoimmune diseases that come out, all of these people with IBS issues and digestive issues, all these people with respiratory illnesses, it's like your breath pattern's horrible and you're locked into a state of stress. Let's clear that up and then see what you really need, see what you're really dealing with. So as long as we're doubling our exhale, we're starting to actually pull the body back over here. But this takes 4 minutes. This takes 2 seconds, stress, 4 minutes rest.
Interesting. So let's say someone's coming to you and they are in fight, flight, and the body is just like in that zone. Do you take them through a breath pattern? Is this what you're training them to do? Is how to use a particular breath pattern in those 4 minutes to slow and reset the nervous system?
Well, I want to show people what's happening so that they can own the pattern. If somebody's seen my lectures before, I jump right into the sequences. But if they haven't been exposed to, hey, this is how our brain works, and our brain's connected to our body through this nervous system, and the nervous system like ends at our skin is very much like a brain. And if we are constantly in this high stress and that stress is being transmitted through the body, that stress doesn't just go nowhere. It gets stored in the fascia tissues. So I had this big breakthrough this year where I started adding fascia release. And it's kind of my own, kind of not my own. It's a Tai Chi compression technique. I just updated it with some new research that's come out in order to elicit hyaluronic acid to be made faster. And my ambitious business owners, so my people that are in high beta that come to my classes, that I would bring
Yes.
through the same breath sequence, but they'd only get so deep. You know what I mean? They'd only, I'd be lucky if they like could let go of work for the hour that they were there. So I'd kind of get them to alpha, but they never really dropped into that slow frequency. So I hurt my foot, healed my foot with this fascia technique. Like any good teacher, I'm like, let me show you guys what I learned. And I had a huge breakthrough. My high-end, high beta business owner started dropping into this very low theta. And I was like, wow, there's something connected here that I didn't see before. So I kept incorporating, instead of doing an hour of breathing, I would do a half an hour of fascia and then a half an hour of breath work, fascia release. And I call it fascia reset because my release technique is very different, like how I look at adhesions and how it works with the fabric of the body. Can I show you pictures?
People who are watching will be able to see them. And then people who are listening, we could just kind of describe what we're seeing a little bit.
So fascia is a fabric that wraps our entire system. And it's funny because some people on Instagram are like, oh, you're so misinformed. And I'm like, actually, if you can look at like the new research that's come out in the last 5 years, like what you're saying is correct up until
Right.
Carla Stecco has proved this over and over and over.
When you say a fabric that kind
Mhm.
of encases our whole system, are you talking about our entire nervous system, all of our organs? What do you mean?
I mean, all of it, actually.
What
So,
about our skin?
yes. Okay, so fascia is a triple helix collagen fiber that
Hmm.
is a nanotubule, so it's in this straw shape. And it wraps all of our
Hmm.
muscles, all of our bones, all of our organs through all of the joints, as well as what they're proving now is that it's moving into the cells through something called integrins. And it actually moves this fluid through it. And that's what's very misunderstood in the medical science and community right now. And that's why
Hmm.
there's this like cute little argument that's happening because the Chinese doctors are saying this is qi. This is literally the life force moving through our body. Then you have naturopaths like Dr. Catherine Clinton, who is showing time and time again that this is the biophotonic network. This is actually where our body stores electrons. So when I have my feet on the tree, right, the earth is emitting electronic fields, like that's measured in a hertz and a frequency, but also there's this electronic exchange, and that's why Ormus exists, like on the seashore, right? Orbitally rearranged monatomic molecules. And we have mechanoreceptors, which are unencapsulated nerve endings at the bottom of the feet and our hands and our tongue. And as we keep these openings, I'm trying not to get too nerdy. Like,
No,
remember
I
the
like it.
10-year-old.
Okay, keep going.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
remember the 10-year-old.
yeah. So these electrons from the earth enter our system through our mechanoreceptors, right? But where do they go and how do they move through? Like, what moves these electrons? And so they've proven now that when they put us in this super dark insulated room, that we emit light. Like, we are bioluminescent in our nature, and we
Just
can actually
it's
charge
wild,
up.
isn't it? What the heck? It's just wild.
I know. And to me, fascia is
I mean,
this, so these little nanotubules, right? So remember as a kid when you could just work out infinitely and you were never sore? You were like, oh, you old people are sore. What does that even feel like? And you could jump off your friend's roof and you were like, oh, just like spring loaded, like no issue. Your joints never
totally.
injured. That's because our fascia just glided over each other. We were like jelly on the inside. And the Tai Chi masters have said this, like, when we are healthy, we should feel like honey. Now, my real thing, this is why it's like, I'm a breathwork teacher. Yeah. But like, there's this thing about the fascia. A handful of hundreds of years ago, it was normal and natural to have your teeth fall out when you were 30. That was just part of aging, right? Right now, it's normal and natural to have your knee and hips replaced at a certain age. You can have a great diet. You can be on the best supplements in the world. You still have low back pain. You still have knee pain. Now, my thing is we have bad fascia hygiene. And these little tubulars work amazing when we're kids. And then we experience an injury, right? Or lack of mobility, and they get stuck together. Now, when these fascia fibers get stuck together, they stop transmitting the fluid, and these are braided together. And we have 3 types, some of them very superficial, like the ones underneath our cheek. And then we have some other types that are, I call them the industrial strength rubber bands that spring load us.
Is that healthy or unhealthy?
So this is just the way it is. So everything is touched. You're like, what's wrapped in fascia? Everything is wrapped in fascia. It's down to the intercellular. I call it the meat lasagna. So the fascia is a dense spider-like structure through everything. And as we injure it, these little fibers start to get glued together. And if we knew how to just unglue them, no problem. But the thing is, we don't know how to unglue them. Not saying that there's not fascia release techniques out there, but as we work out and train over the glue, we actually start to make these larger and larger. And as they start to build up in our system, what happens is we have our knees being pulled on out of alignment, and we have our hips being pulled on out of alignment, and our spine being pulled on out of alignment. So there's a lot of fascia release techniques out there. Most of them take these gluey structures and then rip them apart, either through manual release with myofascia massage or Graston. And the technique that I use, there's about 2 of us out there that use a compression technique. And when you compress, you actually work with the geometry of the fascia. So instead of ripping and tearing, creating inflammation, hoping that it heals right, you're actually waiting for the fibers to rebound and pop back into shape.
So how do you do that?
I teach a 2-hour class about it. There's some no-nos. There's a real sequence to it. There's some conditions that you have to follow. For instance, like being hydrated. You have to warm the tissues up in order to turn on this piezoelectric current. Then you have to compress for a period of time. In the compression, we actually have to avoid pain spots. So I hurt myself when I first started this work. I threw my neck out for about a week. And then I hurt my partner at the time. He threw his low back out, poor guy, for 6 weeks. And I was like, wow, there's a sequence to this. So every time I teach someone, I make sure that there's a proper time investment because I'm way cheaper than a knee replacement or a hip replacement. I'm way cheaper than a chiropractic quarterly session or a week long with a myofascia specialist. But if it's not taught in sequence, people can hurt themselves. So I'm very diligent about here's a rule book. This is the science that you need to know. And these are the rules that you need to follow. But once they learn that, it's in their body, it's in their system. And it's like learning to brush your teeth, you know?
Right. Can you give us like one of the tools that you teach?
Oh, absolutely. I teach nose breathing always. I'm all about nose breathing. So there's this very underused trick, and it's understood in a lot of yoga Kundalini like techniques, but they kind of don't know why. But I'm happy to show you why. So go ahead right now and scoop your tongue, okay, to the bottom of your mouth, and I want you to swallow really slow. And I want you to try to lift the back third of your tongue.
So show me how.
Okay. You're just going to like scoop down with your mouth closed and then swallow really slow. And you're going to feel the top of your hard palate. Okay. But try to lift the back third of the tongue. Okay. Now do that once more. Okay. And like suction cup the tongue. So you'll almost feel like there's a little parking garage for your tongue at the roof. So when you go behind the teeth, there's a little ridge. And then there's a cavity that lifts, and that's where our tongue should live. Okay, so many people have breathing problems or snoring apneas because they have a lazy tongue. And at the base of our skull, there's no bone. So what happens is if we actually lift and suction cup our tongue up there, go ahead and inhale deeply through the nose.
Feels different.
Yeah. So when we suction it, what happens is we pull down this piece of cartilage and muscle at the back of about the back of the throat, and we actually open the airway passage. And so many people have nasal
It's so
gland issues, but
simple.
it's
You can
because the
feel it
nasal glands.
immediately.
Yes. Now, the hard palate also has this suture down the middle of it. So if you were to hum with your tongue in that position, right? You're doing something called orthotropics, and you're creating a vibration through your entire head cavity. And not only is this excellent for your brain, excellent for your nasal glands, but you're also toning your vagal nerve. Like, so most of our pleasure system is housed off of the vagus nerve, which comes off the upper cervical spine. And humming is the simplest way to start slowing your breath pattern down, as well as activating and toning your pleasure system to come back online. So just by putting your tongue in the right position and humming naturally gets people to extend their exhales. So it's like a trick that you can teach any child. If they're having a little panic moment, if they hum for 4 minutes, most people can kind of hum themselves to sleep. It's like the most easy self-soothing exercise.
Really? Humming.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? Humming.
Humming.
Let me just hear, how do you hum?
Okay, I'm actually excited. Thank you for asking for that, because there is a thing. If you actually take your fingers and put it by like your ears, so one finger in front of the ear, one finger behind, and you lift your tongue, okay? And then you just make whatever natural pitch makes sense. So inhale, fill the belly with your air. And then now on this next one, okay, I want you to change your tongue position, and I want you to hum at a higher pitch and just experience the difference. You feel how the change between the tongue and the pitch, how it shifted where the vibration is? So all of our sounds come from the vocal folds, which are down here, right? And all of those sounds come from air passing through those folds. But we can actually resonate vibration off different parts of the body. And in vocal training, they call this register. So your chest voice, your mixed voice, your head voice. But we don't realize we access that a lot. Even our dogs do it. So when they make that sound's coming through their skull. So as a singer, when you're belting, right, your pure notes are when the vibration hits the center of those spaces. So it's fun to
Whoa.
sing, and I know I can see you're lighting up a little bit. There is a beauty of being able to when you start to breathe deeply, start to resonate your chest cavity. And instead of thinking about the note, thinking about the feeling, and then moving the feeling to different places of your body, and then playing with the tongue position. So a lot of people end up discovering throat singing, because if you shift your tongue position a little bit, you create dual capacities in the mouth, and you end up making a tone out of the back of your head and the front of your mouth simultaneously. So you have a dual tone, but it's all from playing with vibration and how this vibration is moving through the body. But the more we can activate the vibration in our skull, right? So with the tongue lifted on the roof of the mouth, we vibrate the whole skull structure. And when these skull plates start to vibrate, they activate these latent stem cells. So people that need rhinoplasty because they have deviated septums, that goes away after 6 weeks. People that have nasal gland issues. So by simply humming with your tongue in the right posture, which is lifted and suction cupped against the hard palate, there's all this amazing stuff that happens within our body. Our bodies are meant to heal. They are a natural healing mechanism. We just have to work with it.
So you learned this how? Just by your deep, deep curiosity and going in deep, and then your own wounds combined with your singing and the anxiety from golf? Like, how did you bring this all together?
I don't know. I haven't had a television in 10 years. So like there's a lot of time in your life when you don't watch a movie, but you
Yeah.
read a book, or I'm grateful to have a lot of incredible friends in my life that are curious seekers. I like to think that I have the greatest group of women in the world around me that are deep thinkers and explorers of the new. So I
I
think
love
it's
it.
just natural in my world. Yeah. I mean, my old partner and I, like, we have a band and we play between the two of us 30 instruments, and people will be like, "How do you play so many instruments?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're all just strings. You squish down on the string and they make a note. Like in its simplest form, it's just you're pressing on a string. Like anybody can play an instrument, but at that point, it's just patterns. So like I did murals for a while. I restored this 100-yard mural in Hilton, and somebody was like, "How do you do this?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It's just color." Like
So
just
your
lines and
mind has
color.
a
Like if you
way of picking up patterns, math,
Yeah, I do think
music, rhythm, vibration.
yeah, and there's a lot to improve upon in my rhythm, to be honest. But yeah, I think as a golfer, I was taught sequences very early, and then because I'm small, I'm 100 pounds, and in college I was all of 95 pounds, and I wanted to hit the ball, and I'm 5 foot tall, and I wanted to hit the ball 250 yards because that's like torque quality baseline, right? And in order to do that, I needed to really learn leverage, and leverage in the golf swing comes from ground force reaction. So I think at a young age, simply because of my desire to hit the ball farther, I started asking really weird scientific questions, because I needed to capitalize on what I had. And in doing so, I had I have every club in my bag is custom built. And I think I know a lot more about the golf swing than most people because I'm 100 pounds. I can still hit the ball 250. And I don't do it from like, a 6 foot long leverage. I do it from not wasting any energy. And in doing so, I had to get really good at my breath because it's an explosive action. So I look at the golf swing so much like a kung fu person. Where it's everything's from the ground, waste no energy, minimal movement. So I think I can credit a lot of that mindset back to the sport, you know?
So, what drives you to teach this? What is your desire in teaching about the fascia, about the breath? What are you hoping to gift somebody in this process?
I actually hope, like if you want me to distill it to one word, the word is hope. Um, I'm a little concerned about my generation. I'm 33. I grew up right where cell phones were starting to come out when we were becoming teenagers. And I saw this multitasking addiction. And what I understand about neurology, which is really basic, I feel like I know enough about neurology to be interested and also know that I know nothing. But there is this glimmer that between my experiences with plant medicine and my understanding that we don't need to rely on these medicines to get to this other space, that my concern is my generation is in a high beta mode. And if we don't take care of that at a young enough age, we're going to end up with beta calcification and we'll see early onset Alzheimer's, early onset frontal lobe dementia. And that concerns me because a lot of people are fixing problems with meds. And oftentimes I feel like that's the shortcut, that's the excuse to be the victim of whatever diagnosis. And I have this thing about the word trauma in a lot of the yoga communities. I see the word not to not embrace it or not to say that we can't hold space for it, but I feel people leaning on it as an excuse to not be a champion of their own reality. And I feel like the breath technique, I'm a kind of a brutal breath teacher. Like if you come to my class, I give you a strength training sequence before we get easy. I'm going to wear you out. I'm going to make you feel your muscles. You're going to feel your muscles work better than you ever have. You have to feel them. You have to make them flexible. You have to make them strong. Then from there, I'm training your natural and automatic breath pattern to chill. I don't really want you to chill in my class. I want you to learn how to feel, makes it flexible and make it strong. And it's because everybody has trauma. Everything in my garden has had trauma. All of my beehives have lived through epic hurricanes. And if their little tiny lives can survive a hurricane, we're going to be okay no matter what we've experienced. Like trauma is part of growth. My trees that are the biggest in my yard are the ones that are the most alone. The ones that are smaller are living in these little clusters where they share resources and they protect each other from storms. It's the ones that stand alone that they get the most damage that are the hugest and the most grand and the most excellent. And I feel like that's the part of the dialogue that people are missing. If you've experienced trauma, you can let that be your excuse, or you can let that empower you to be bigger and better. And I really feel like when you work with the breath and you free your body from the old stress, you can really step into that mindset of like, I'm a powerful being. I need to just charge this electrical magnetic field that I am and remember. And I want to hold space for that because I would love to live in a world where when I'm 80, everybody that I'm with that tried is healthy with all of their original body parts. Nobody's on meds and we're free in our bodies. I don't want to grow up wearing adult diapers. And the example that's set before
No.
me, I am super not into it. I would really like to just
Yeah.
reset that whole thing. I would like to live a long, prosperous, healthy life. Whatever that looks like, I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be alive. I want to rock and roll. I want to pedal to the metal. I mean, this is
Yeah.
how wonderful and lucky we are to get to be here. Let's do it
I love
right.
it.
Let's
It's
work with
it's
this
like
machine that we're in.
some of your breath techniques. Do you want to share a couple for those listening to just
Sure.
like
I would
start a
love to.
practice? How could someone
Yeah.
who is saying, "Yeah, my God, my nervous system is fried. I know I'm always in beta. I don't know what the heck to do." What would you tell them?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, if we could focus for like 2 minutes, I could actually bring us through a pretty solid sequence. And if somebody could just take this sequence and do it 3 times, they literally have it. Like just you do that every day. for 6 weeks and you'll be blown away at the results. And this is, to me, this is like my gift to the world. I have not found anything more powerful. And part of it is just operatic training. And the other part of it is some of the stuff that I invented just working with people. But it's so simple. We don't have to take an hour out of our day to practice breath work. We need 10 minutes that we have memorized so we can do it wherever we are, that optimizes our lung field. So the first one is called the detox breath. And for anybody that smokes, if you're pregnant, don't do this. Okay, that's ground one. If you're pregnant, refrain from the first exercise. But this is all about feeling the diaphragm. So there's only two muscles that pump the lungs, okay? The lungs are these spongy balloons, and they are pumped by the diaphragm, which is a U-shaped muscle that touches every edge of our rib cage. Now, most of us are used to using this diaphragm at 20% capacity. When we use it correctly, it flattens all the way out and your belly pushes all the way out. So I say push your belly out. What I really mean is push your diaphragm flat, but people can't even feel that muscle. The second set of muscles is called the intercostal muscles. Inter meaning between, costal meaning rib. They're the muscles between our rib cage. Most people can't feel those either, but these muscles actually have the capacity to expand outwards and contract inwards, okay? So remember I said earlier, the untrained lung can hold 5 to 7 cubic liters of air. By creating flexibility in these muscles, we can double your lung capacity. You can start to hold 14 cubic liters of air just by learning to open and control these. So the first one is all about cleaning the lung field. Now, often we'll go into a smoky bar and then we don't think twice. And then we're like, oh, whatever, that's life. I actually can show you how to get that old smoke out of your lungs. It's called the detox breath. Some people are used to calling something similar to this the fire breath, but we do this all through the nose. It's quite aggressive. And we're going to do 90 seconds. And 90 seconds is pretty brutal, but that's baseline for me. Okay, 45 seconds in, you're going to feel a burn in your abdomen. That's your diaphragm. Welcome to the diaphragm. And this is all about letting your inhales be passive. Okay, so we just... This will be 2.5 minutes once we get into it. I'll get boom, boom, boom. We'll just do 3 exercises right in a row. So go ahead and inhale through the nose, fill the belly. And then for 90 seconds detoxing, begin. It's supposed to burn. "30 seconds in, keep the belly moving. We're halfway, tongue's on the roof of the mouth. "30 seconds. We're getting close. Don't quit. That burning is your diaphragm. 15. 10. 5. Keep it going. Inhale, fill the belly all the way up. When the belly's full, hold the breath there. Inhale more, fill the back. Fill the sides. Fill the front. Swallow once. Inhale more, fill the upper chest. We're going to hold for 30 seconds. This is maximum capacity. Okay, we are stretching out the diaphragm now that you just burnt it out, and we are opening up the intercostals. Take in more air. This is all about expansion, so don't clamp down on the breath. Open out around it. You can move your arms all weird. This is all about the feeling inside. 10 more seconds. Inhale more if you have room. Okay, we're gonna exhale. Exhale with control though. Feel like a sigh all through the nose, but you're pushing the air from the upper lung field. Okay, and so the lower belly stays out, 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 all the way to the end. Empty everything on the top. So the chest, the sides, the back, then empty the belly. As the belly empties, pull the belly button to the spine. Pull in on the lower rib cage, okay, the lower intercostals, and then lift up on the belly button. You can breathe here for now. When you're advanced, you hold empty and it's brutal. We're going to hold here for 30. This is your minimum. So just like we pumped it to feel it, okay, then we expand everything. Now we contract everything. So lift the belly button higher, pull the rib cage in tighter. 15 more seconds. All right, if you can, this is the last 10 seconds, empty out all of your air, lift up higher on the belly button. 5 more seconds. If you're too much of a wimp, empty now. And release. So if someone, what I teach is to repeat that 3 times. And in doing so, you gain a very dynamic relationship to your muscles. And you start to, instead of just inhale, you can inhale and control the air because air wants to float. So if you just inhale untrained, all of the air goes into your upper lung field. But most of the oxygen gets dumped into the lower, into the bloodstream in the lower lung field. So that's why in opera, when you train, you put a weight on your tummy. And at this point, I train with like a 40-pound weight on my belly. And then you hit, and so you inhale, you push the tummy all the way out. And then you scream or sing or belt notes into the ceiling as you push the belly out. And my goal is to hit, 30 seconds while I keep the weight up at full capacity. But it's in teaching your body how to control this airflow that actually slows your breath rhythm down. So in the beginning, you feel the lower and the upper. As you advance, you feel lower, back, side, front. And as you advance a little more, you start to feel a sequence, and it actually becomes this Fibonacci wave. So you inhale and you fill yourself up like a wave, and you fall in love with the inhale. The inhale takes 30 seconds because you can control how it unfolds in your body.
30
and then the
second
exhale is
inhale.
this wave coming out. Yeah. It's funny. I'm teaching
Wild.
a course on Tuesday nights. And they're like, how do we even get there? And I'm like, I'll show you. Guys are already at 1.5 breaths a minute just based on your breath holds. And they're like, no way. So I brought them through it last night. And at this point, they're 3 weeks into training, and they already have enough breath control where everybody could get through a 1.5 breaths per minute. And it's just about it because it's the expansion. If you can keep
1.5
expanding,
breaths
right?
per minute.
Yeah. So, for instance,
And
like 4 breaths a minute, it is only you inhale for 7 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds, and you do that 4
okay,
times.
that's okay. Right.
So in the Sanskrit literature, they say 1 breath for 1 minute, you have perfect health and perfect skin.
Let's do
It's
it.
hard to forget. When you read it, you're like, yeah, right? That's my concept. That's the goal. It's a quantifiable goal.
Wow. Okay, so you're teaching the breath and about the fascia and getting people to be really conscious about their breathing and work with this gift of breath. And then also putting your feet on the tree and things like that. What are you doing when you're teaching people how to ground? How are you tying that in, and why?
Well, I mean, really, at the highest level, this is all about electromagnetic frequency, but like most people aren't ready to have that conversation. So we start with like, you got to take care of your body and like you should breathe better.
We are just this electrical magnetic
We are
field.
antennas. We are. And we live outside of our body. Most people aren't ready to realize that yet, but like we understand it with magnets, we understand it with our phone. Our phone is emitting a charge outside of just its physical perimeter. So to me, working with the breath has always inspired the spirit, right? The word enthusiasm is possession by God. And to me, that's the ultimate energy level to live in. And I look often at the body as a radio tower for this conscious charge that moves through us. So there's this doctor I love, Dr. BJ Palmer. He died like 1945-ish. And he had one of the best performing clinics of all time. And when he passed away, his literature was burned. They actually had a whole FBI unit that was dedicated
Of course they
to
did.
destroying everything that he built. BJ Palmer was all about nervous system optimization. We actually need to credit him for inventing the 3D CT. It was because of him. Like, he was the first one that threw images through. Anyway, long conversation, but he was able to measure with this device that he built with an engineer the electrical voltage that enters the brainstem and how that electrical voltage is transmitted through the body. Now, I kind of feel like the gap in, he started what we know of as Western chiropractic. And Western chiropractic at its core was based around upper cervical adjustment, toggle number 43. That was the most successful thing ever. There's so many derivatives now that are just diluted, washed out versions of that. However, at its core, it was all about taking this frequency, this energetic, quantifiable unit that entered through the brainstem and making it expand through the body with no interference. Now, I think that Arnold Ehret built a beautiful formula in the early 1920s, and it was vitality equals energy minus obstruction. He was on to that same theory of thought that we are an energy that enters into the system, and depending on how we have the system optimized, we're either in full capacity. My hair is wild when I talk about this. I don't know what happens. It's like it takes on a life of its.
The electricity.
I just looked over. I'm like, I look nuts right now. So to me, if we look at the body
Well,
like
hey,
a
it was like, look at
scaffolding structure
Einstein's hair.
of this,
Maybe it was,
yeah.
some electrical currents running through the brain.
The joke in my family is like the more animated I talk, the wider the hair starts to get. Like, doesn't matter what I do with it. So it's funny, like, seeing it on camera, I'm like, oh God, settle the hair down. But there is a translation to this energetic substance, which I think is what we actually are. Like, we are not our body. We are not our brain, which I feel like people forget all the time, And
it's so
this thing's passing through the brain. Yeah. So to me, if I'm in a radio tower, okay, my consciousness transmitting through, I want this radio tower to be fully optimized, fully grounded, and electrically charged. And the fascia is the thing that moves this piezoelectrical current through us. It also houses the entire nervous system. And how the nervous system ends with all of our mechanoreceptors and proprioceptors, this is alive. This is a living electrical unit. So when I go outside and I ground for my 20 minutes a day minimum, and I'm taking really good care of my feet so that my mechanoreceptors are totally activated, online, nothing stuck in the way, and I do my breath routine adjacent to a tree that's emitting an electrical current, I'm asking for all of these electrons, come in me, make me powerful, make this antenna strong so that I can house the lightning that I am in this unit, this tiny little 5-foot, 100-pound unit.
And play 20 instruments because, it's just my brain
I'm at
is
8.
fired up. 8,
yeah,
okay.
But it's all
8,
overlap.
amazing.
If you think about color, right? Like, look at the math of color. Colors, 3 primary colors that collapse into each other to make other colors. So I was like a halfway decent. I'm like super not as good as so many other people, but I'm a halfway decent muralist. And half of it was because, like, I knew how to sell my work and who knew who to approach and, like, was willing to fail. And the other half is I know how to make my own colors. So everybody else is spending $200 learning, and I would spend $100 and could make 90 canvases because I was like, I'm just going to grab the snowboard out of the trash and paint it. I lived in Colorado for a while, so it was like I worked at a ski shop, and I would just, everything that was thrown in the trash, I'm like, I'm going to paint it, I'm going to paint it, I'm going to paint it. But it's only 3 colors. That's it. Like, that's all that the platonic solids, there's only 5 shapes. That's all collapses into each other. The bees have been running on a millennia old algorithm. Once you get that algorithm, like, you're a beekeeper. It's like, once you learn how to play one string instrument, to translate it to the next string instrument is just pattern recognition. It's 7 notes, really 12 notes when you start to play the black keys, but like half the instruments you can just play and see if you want. Like the harp is all just, you can just play the white keys or play the black keys. It's just sequences over and over and over and over. All of these things that people think are a little too heady. It's like
Mhm.
it's 12 keys that you master, and
Patterns.
then those 12 keys translate to all of those. Yeah, it's just patterns. In the garden,
Mhm.
the same way. Thanks for letting me get all fired up there.
I love it. I used to, when the kids were little, talk about, my kids were little, I'd be like, the Fibonacci spiral. They'd be like, what? And I'd be talking about how water is alive and all the structures of water through the sink. And so you get really excited about things. I love it. And you know,
Yeah.
it's just interesting because we live our lives in this world that is supposedly solid, and yet we know it's not. We know that everything is vibration. We know that there's frequency. And even if you slow
Mm-hmm.
enough down with your breath or in meditation, and you start to allow yourself to see actually what's right in front of you, you'll begin to see that it's not so solid. You'll begin to see that, even that music, right? When I think of sound, and I think that of the saying, the Hermetic text of as above, so below, so within, so without, and even sound itself. Like when you're listening to something, it's out there, but it's also right here. The sound is being heard within. There's no within without. There's no as above below. And you're talking about where this energy comes into the brain and the body. And it's like the body is here, but when you really start to begin to also close your eyes and feel sensation, the sensation isn't just contained in this body. As you said, the phone emits energy well beyond the structure of the phone. And the tree, as you're sitting against it and leaning against it, it's this constant exchange and interconnection of energy and frequency through all of us. It's fascinating. And I love your work. I love what you're trying to do and what you're teaching. And I actually would love to learn more. Even doing that practice, it's like the realization that I could expand
Yeah.
my lungs more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And I know very little about the
I
fascia.
Yeah, most people do, and that's okay. And half the people that reach out to me, they're like, "Will it help me with this pain spot? Will it help me with my neck? Will it help me with my head trauma? Will it help me with my um, injury from birth?" And I'm just like, I treat the whole thing. I'm never going to focus on pain spots. I want your entire system to be rebooted. And if you get me started on tensegrity, it becomes a very long conversation, but I am a
On
huge
what?
fan of Kenneth Snelson. It's called tensegrity. So back in the 60s, there was this great sculptor, Kenneth Snelson, and he called it floating compression. And he showed the dynamics of being able to support heavy weights well into the sky that actually like make fluidscapes. And his stuff is very fractally, very sacred geometry like. And he ended up inspiring Buckminster Fuller, who's the father of the geodesic dome, and the omnidirectional wheel, which I usually have with me, like literally at all. I have my foot with me right now. So Buckminster, yeah, I have a skeleton in my car at all times to like prove particular points to people. But Buckminster Fuller showed how we could use this tension and integrity to build structures that didn't have to just be brick, brick, brick. And their work ended up inspiring Dr. Stephen Levin, who's the first orthopedic surgeon to apply this tensegrity concept to the human body. Now, Dr. Ida Rolf, early in the 1900s, she had like a very interesting thing that's inspired a lot about the fascia, but it's the scaffolding structure within the body that is actually collapsible, and that's where my sequence is a little bit different than others. And it's not really it's that what I teach about the fascia really comes from Tai Chi masters hundreds of years ago. I added 1 to 2 modifications to it because of the research that I'm into, and it works really well. And I can work with 80-year-olds and I can work with 8-year-olds, but this sequence is all about working from our feet upwards. So I don't really care about people's pain spot because often the pain, when we look at a fabric, right? if you have the fabric wrinkled in one section and then you just leave it wrinkled there, right? You're not going to, the tear isn't going to happen where that wrinkle is. It's going to happen on the opposite side. And pain is the same way. We feel pain, not where the problem is. And that's why fascia release is so protected by a therapist, because nobody's come out with the technique that they trust people to do. Because unless you see it as an integrated structure, you're going to hurt yourself. So the way that I teach is from this very tensegrity approach, which is ground up. We are a tensegrity unit. We are this pillared structure with these spring-loaded rubber bands that are walking on 2 feet. So I sometimes disappoint people where I'm just like, that's great. I'm sorry about your shoulder pain. We're going to start at your feet. I'm sorry about your hip pain. We're going to start at your feet.
You mentioned about your grounding. You say, I take good care of my feet. What does that look like? What is taking care of your feet?
So most people don't know this. We have 20.
Oh,
let me show you my foot.
Okay, for those of you who are not watching, the foot skeleton has made it onto the screen.
He's always with me. It's weird. I'm like the lady that walks around. I teach at a country club, and I always have this foot in my cooler. And I'm that person that walks around with a foot in their cooler. So we have 26 bones in our feet. Our whole leg only has 4 bones in it, including the kneecap. So the foot is an incredibly delicate and intricate structure. And what happens is when we're kids, they put us in shoes, and then we sit at a desk. And in these shoes, there's not like wide spaces for our toes. We get crushed. Now, I just want you to like look at the standard logical engineering, okay? If we were to crush our feet here, how do you think my balance and posture is going to be when I add 65 years to that? Or 70 years to that?
Not so good.
Right? This person's going to end up with a knee problem or a hip problem. They're going to need a walker or a cane. But if we have these toes that are fully expanded, right, which is part of taking care of our fascia, is ungluing this foot. This is where most of the problems are stemming for people's issues, is all right here, because this is where we get crushed and when we're still developing. So the first thing we need to do is take care of the plantar fascia, which is the spring-loaded band on the bottom. Then as we get rid of what's happening here, we need to teach the toes to expand and reach out. Most people can't feel their toes. I make people do all these crazy toe exercises. And even people that think they have amazing balance, they quickly realize that they have amazing ability to keep their body balanced, but their toe strength is horrible.
What do you do for shoes? Barefoot? What do you do most of the time?
Barefoot's excellent. So I wear shoes that are they're called Vratum. They have a super wide toe. They're actually built for drummers. If you go to their website, it's like built for musicians, but I can spread all my toes out in front. And then I'm in Florida, so I get to be barefoot.
I think I've seen them. They're like wide-looking sandals.
They make like if I'm in tennis shoes, I'm wearing Vratum. Otherwise, I'm in these like very Korean looking platform sandals that are wide on the front, like old school. Like if you picture a woman in kimonos, I always wear the same thing. I wear a leotard and sweats. I never teach classes in shorts, and I absolutely despise yoga pants. So I'm just I'm like dressed like one of those New York dancers, leotard, sweatpants, and my kimono shoes. But there's actually a foot test that we could do right now if you're into it.
Yep.
If you take your shoes off, right? Try to spread another test. Okay. Spread your toes out all the way and see if you can separate your pinky toe from all of the other toes. And see if it's balanced on either side.
Okay, so they're all spread, and then the pinky's going to go out more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Try to get them all spread, and then try to get the pinky toe out wider. Can you do it?
I can on the left, but not on the right.
Okay. So that's super normal. The fact that you can do it on one foot is actually pretty good. So most people, unless you slackline, slackliners, I can actually like tell their feet. I'm like, you slackline, because their pinky toe has learned how to curl separately. When we can't feel our toes, we have lost part of our connection to that, which is super not good. So we want to have full capacity of our toes. Now, the other thing to try to do, okay, ready for test number 2? Go ahead and
Okay.
keep all of your baby toes down, okay, and then lift your big toe up. Okay. Now, if you can, do it a couple times where you keep the baby's toes down, you just isolate the big toe. So now we're training the foot to act differently, not like a hoof, but like actually like something that has phalanges to it. Can
Should
you do it?
my heel be down on the ground?
Yeah, it could be a little up, but it's more about like,
Okay.
can you do it in your brain?
I can only do it again on the left side, which is weird. I'm not left-handed.
Okay. Something to work on. All right, now go ahead and try the reverse. Put your big toe down and then lift your baby toes. Can you do that? Some people are going to be like,
Oh
I'm
my God, this is
cramping. And I'll be like,
bizarre.
these are your foot
Yes,
muscles.
I can do that. I can do that
Okay.
on both
All right. So
sides.
these skills
Yeah.
are all it's what's going to keep us out of walkers when we're 90. So my grandma, I do this tennis ball trick where I have people roll out their plantar fascia. My grandma's been doing this since she was 20. She's 90 now. She has never had a walker, never used a cane. And she makes fun of other old people. She's like, they don't take good care of their feet, Brooke. And I'm like, I know, Grandma. Legend.
All right, want to give one more test?
Okay, so let's do a breath hold test because these are the most
Okay.
humbling. So we're gonna prime.
Ooh.
We're gonna
Okay.
do that detox breath again for 15 seconds. Okay, which isn't even a long time. So no complaining. And then what we're gonna do is come into a breath hold as long as possible. Now, ideally, baseline breath hold 90 seconds. All right. That should be point A for all of us. If we can only hold our breath for 30 seconds, it means that there's probably a lot of crap in the lungs that needs to be cleaned out. If we freak out at like 50 seconds, it means that we need to have a better relationship with the lung field because that means our lungs are probably not holding 5 cubic liters of air, which is going to make your breath rate go up. So if we want to be the people in our lives that are holding space for others, okay? That space between thoughts where we have stimulus reaction, it's all about the breath. So when we do our detox breathing, what we're doing is we're training I call it the 1 second inhale. So in Kung Fu, there's the 1-inch punch. In my world, there's the 1 second inhale. So I can do a full sprint or I can hold my breath infinite, like underwater, not infinitely yet, but I can hold my breath underwater and come up, right? Instead of gasping for air like everybody else, I can go and get to full. So I can go empty to max capacity in 1 second because I've toned my nasal glands, I've toned my trachea, and I've toned my bronchial tubes to just intake. So in the beginning, when people do that detox breath pattern, all they feel is the diaphragm. But 2 months in, when your diaphragm's actually kind of strong, you actually feel the lungs opening up and you can actually start to control the gas flow because now you can feel your intercostals and you can feel the back versus the sides and the front. You can feel the diaphragm drop out. So instead of breathing into your belly, you actually can smush the diaphragm from the lumbar down on your internal organs to the front sternum. And when we do that properly, there is a whole shift of internal organs. So your kidneys drop down 2 to 3 centimeters when you breathe right. So there's this enormous internal massage. Wow. It also starts to tone the pelvic floor. So like people that have bloating issues, gone. Digestive issues, often cleared away. Because if there's stagnancy, it's unhealthy. But if we breathe right, now every single breath is creating this optimal fluid. And if you go into the old literature, moving their danchin, it's all about the breath. So let's test the breath hold. If you're not at 90 seconds today, that's okay. We're always getting better. We're going to prime for 15 seconds. World record holders prime for 30 minutes. So we're just going to do a quick little 15 seconds.
Okay.
Now, yeah. And so I'm going to prep you. So again, as you deal with your panic,
I'm ready.
I'll coach you up on try to like holding longer. So hypoxia training in the beginning is brutal, but whatever. That's the fun. So inhale, fill the belly. 15 seconds. Fast as you can. inhale, fill the belly all the way up. Fill the back. Fill the chest. Swallow once. Inhale more. And we hold. And I want you to relax. Don't clamp down. Just relax. Close your eyes. 15 seconds. $30. You're coming upon a threshold at 45. People tend to start to panic. You have plenty of oxygen in there. Now push the air into the low belly when you panic and try to relax. If you can relax past that, you'll jump 30 seconds. Wherever you are today is totally fine, but you are dialoguing with panic and anxiety. You're creating a space right now around how your brain handles panic and anxiety. 1 minute. Before you quit, if you feel like quitting, you're at 1:15, take in a sip of air and try to prolong this uncomfort. This is all about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, realizing that you have the power to slow this space down. 1:30. Again, feel those muscles, expand those muscles. You did good. You were at legit like 115, 120.
Yeah.
For those of you, if anybody's still holding, you're at 1:55. So that's the kind of training that I do with people. And I'm always quantifying it. Because there's always, I call it the black belt in the room. So I make it like a little competitive for people, which is fun. People like that because they want to see how they improve. So a lot of breath works that they do, there's absolutely no quantifying. There's often like, I think the breathwork community is a little misguided right now because so many people are teaching a hyperventilation routine. And when you breathe 50 times a minute, you're actually triggering your stress response to come back online. And I mean, if you are highly depressed, highly fatigued, and chronically deflated in your nervous system, it's cool because I call it the defibrillator approach because you're going to turn the whole system back on because you're going to unlock stress, you're going to unlock adrenaline. You hyperventilate for a handful of minutes, you're going to induce your brain to create adrenaline, turn the stress response on. But if you're someone who is highly stressed, chronically overcaffeinated, and already in high beta often, right? And you do a hyperventilation technique, you're going to crash your nervous system. And if you get relaxed after, that's cool, but it's because you just crashed your nervous system. So by teaching people the physiology of breathing, right? And teaching them that they have a power to feel the muscles, make these muscles more and more and more flexible, then make these muscles more and more strong. At any point when they experience stress, they get cut off on that same highway, right? They can take that deep breath and hum, slow the exhale down. They can breathe and try to drop into that 4 breaths a minute for the next 4 minutes, and they will have pulled their nervous system from a very intense response back into the state of rest. The immune system comes back online. The digestion system comes back online. The glucose goes right back into the liver. I don't think we look often at the physiology of optimizing this thing. Doctors, and I feel bad because I feel like when I sit down with a lot of doctors, they are in so high beta, dealing with victim after victim after victim that's hitting them with, this is my problem, that's my problem. And they don't, potentially, most of them don't even want to get better. They just want to feed off the energy of like that victim. So I hate the doctor blame because I feel like these are people that read the books, that paid their dues, that have $250,000 of debt, that they're trying to do good for people. but like the most basic physiological response of stress versus relaxing could really, I think, pull so many people back into a state of freedom and health in their own body if they choose to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, for
You're
sharing.
welcome so
It
much.
went longer than usual because I don't know, I love this stuff. I could go in so many different directions with this stuff. There's so, I mean, you say Tesla and I'm here for hours.